Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast, where we help you speak English more naturally, more confidently, and more fluently in your daily life. And today, we are going to talk about something that every English learner dreams about, but very few people truly understand: how to unlock your English fluency in a real and practical way.
Yes, Jason, and I think this is such an important topic because I remember when I was learning English, I could understand a lot. I knew many words, I could read sentences, but when it came to speaking, I would suddenly feel stuck, like my mind just goes blank, and I didn't know how to express myself smoothly.
Exactly, Julia. And that's the real struggle most learners face. They are learning English for years, but still feel like something is blocking their speaking ability. And in today's episode, we are going to break that barrier step by step, so you can finally start speaking without fear, without translation, and without hesitation.
So, if you are someone who understands English but cannot speak fluently yet, then stay with us until the end, because this episode will completely change the way you think about English fluency.
Let's get started. So, Julia, let's talk honestly about the biggest problem that keeps English learners stuck for years, because most people don't actually struggle with learning English. They struggle with using English in real time when they speak.
Yes, Jason, and I think the main issue is that many learners are still thinking in their native language first. They create a full sentence in their mind in their own language, and then they try to translate it into English word by word, and by the time they finish translating, the moment to speak is already gone.
Exactly. And that's where everything slows down. Because English is not a translation exercise, it is a thinking and speaking skill, but most learners treat it like a school exam where they must first build a perfect sentence in their head before speaking it out loud.
And that creates another big problem: fear. Because when you are always trying to be correct, you become afraid of making mistakes, and that fear makes you speak slower, hesitate more, and sometimes stop speaking completely.
Right. And over time, this becomes a habit. So even when you know many words and grammar rules, your mouth doesn't move freely. Your mind becomes busy translating, correcting, and doubting instead of simply expressing ideas.
So the real problem is not lack of English knowledge, it is the habit of thinking in your own language first, and the fear of speaking before you are perfect.
And until that changes, fluency will always feel far away, even if your vocabulary is strong. So, Julia, before we talk about techniques and steps, I think we first need to change something very important in the learner's mind, because many people think fluency means speaking fast, using difficult words, or having perfect grammar. But in reality, that is not fluency at all.
Yes, Jason, and I completely agree because I used to believe that fluent English means sounding like a native speaker, using very advanced vocabulary, and never making mistakes. But the truth is, fluency is something much simpler and much more powerful than that.
Exactly. Real fluency is when you can express your thoughts smoothly and naturally without stopping every few seconds to translate in your head. It's when your ideas move directly from your mind to your mouth in English, even if your sentences are simple.
And I think this is a very important point for learners because many people stop themselves from speaking just because they think, my English is not perfect yet. But fluency is not perfection, it is communication. If the other person understands you, then you are already succeeding.
Right? And even native speakers make mistakes, pause, and correct themselves, so fluency is not about being error-free. It is about being comfortable with expressing yourself without fear or hesitation.
So the real mindset shift is this: Stop asking, "Is my English perfect?" and start asking, "Can I express my idea clearly right now?" Because once you focus on expression instead of perfection, your fluency starts to unlock naturally.
And that is the foundation of everything we will discuss next. All right, Julia, now that we understand what fluency really means, let's move to the first real step. And this is something that completely changes everything for a learner training your brain to think in English.
Yes, Jason, because this is where most learners are missing the real practice they study English. They memorize grammar rules, they learn vocabulary lists, but they never actually train their mind to think in English during daily life.
Exactly. And the simplest way to start is to bring English into your thoughts, not just your study time. For example, when you wake up in the morning, instead of thinking in your native language, try simple English thoughts, like, I am waking up now, or I need to brush my teeth, or today is a new day.
And at first, it will feel very slow and maybe even a little strange because your brain is not used to it, but that is completely normal. The goal is not speed in the beginning. The goal is consistency. You are teaching your mind a new habit.
Yes, and another powerful method is to describe everything you see around you in English. For example, if you are sitting in a room, you can think, this is my room. The wall is white. There is a table in front of me, even if they are very simple sentences.
I also like to call this inner speaking practice because you are speaking inside your mind all day long, and over time, your brain starts to automatically connect ideas with English words instead of translating from your native language.
And that is the key point. Fluency starts in your mind before it ever comes out of your mouth. If your thinking becomes English, your speaking will naturally become faster, smoother, and more confident.
So even if you practice just a few minutes a day, but you do it every single day, you will start to notice that English is no longer something you translate. It becomes something you live with in your mind.
And that's when real progress begins. All right, Julia. Now let's talk about one of the biggest reasons learners cannot speak fluently. And that is the habit of translating everything in their head before speaking.
Yes, Jason, and I think almost every learner goes through this stage. You first think in your native language, then you try to find English words, then you try to build a sentence, and by the time you finish all of that, the conversation has already moved on.
Exactly. And the problem is not just speed, it is mental overload. Because your brain is doing three jobs at the same time: thinking, translating, and speaking. And that is why you feel slow, confused, and nervous when you try to talk.
And I remember this very clearly in my own experience. I used to know the correct English words, but I could not speak smoothly because I was always building sentences step by step in my mind instead of letting them come naturally.
So the solution is to stop translating word by word and instead start thinking in ready-made English phrases. For example, instead of building a sentence from your native language, just learn the full expression like, I'm not sure, that sounds good, or let me think about it.
Yes, because phrases are much more powerful than single words. They save time, they reduce pressure, and they help your brain respond automatically in real conversations.
And at first, it will feel uncomfortable to skip translation, but if you keep practicing simple English thinking, your brain slowly adapts, and one day you will notice that you are responding in English without even thinking about your native language.
And that is the moment where real fluency starts to feel natural, not forced, not translated, but automatic.
All right, Julia. Now we come to a very powerful step. And honestly, this is the step that most learners avoid for years, and that is learning to speak before you feel ready.
Yes, Jason. And I think this is where fear plays the biggest role because many learners believe, I will start speaking when my English becomes better, or I will speak when I stop making mistakes. But that moment never really comes.
Exactly. Because waiting to feel ready is the biggest delay in fluency. The truth is, you don't become fluent first, and then you speak first. And that is how fluency develops over time.
And I remember feeling this fear myself. I was always worried about making mistakes, so I stayed quiet. But the funny thing is, staying quiet did not improve my English at all. It only kept me stuck.
Right. And this is why speaking practice is so important, even if you are alone. You can talk to yourself, describe your day, or practice simple conversations in front of a mirror because the goal is not perfection, the goal is movement, getting your mouth used to English.
And once you start speaking without waiting for perfection, something very interesting happens. Your brain becomes less afraid of mistakes and more focused on communication. You start thinking, it's okay if I make errors. I just want to express my idea.
And that mindset shift changes everything because fluency is built through action, not preparation. Every time you speak, even imperfectly, you are training your confidence muscle.
So don't wait for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is actually the moment you start speaking right now.
All right, Julia. Now let's make this very real for our listeners. Because learning fluency is not just about ideas, it's about how you actually use English in daily life.
Yes, Jason, so let's imagine a simple real-life situation. For example, you walk into a small cafe and you want to order something in English. Instead of thinking too much or translating everything, you can keep it very natural and simple.
Exactly. You might say something like, "Hi, I'd like a cup of tea, please." Or, "Can I get a sandwich?" And even if your English is not perfect, the message is clear, and that is real communication.
And if the waiter replies, you don't need to panic or overthink. You can simply respond with basic phrases like, yes, thank you, that's all, or how much is it? These small, simple sentences are actually the foundation of real fluency.
And the important thing here is not complexity, it's confidence and flow. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are just trying to communicate your idea in the simplest and clearest way possible.
And when you practice situations like this again and again in your mind and in real life, English starts to feel natural, like a tool you can use anytime, not a subject you are afraid of.
All right, Julia. Now let's talk about some very common mistakes that keep English learners stuck for a long time. Because sometimes it's not about what you should do, but what you should stop doing.
Yes, Jason, and the first big mistake is overthinking grammar while speaking. Many learners try to make every sentence 100% correct in their mind before saying it, and that slows them down so much that they lose confidence in the conversation.
Exactly. And another big mistake is relying too much on translation, always thinking in your native language first, and then trying to convert it into English word by word. That habit makes speaking feel heavy and unnatural.
And I think a very important one is waiting too long to speak. Many learners believe they need more practice or more vocabulary before they can start speaking, but in reality, speaking is the practice.
Right. And the final mistake is fear of mistakes. People stop themselves because they are afraid of being wrong. But actually, every mistake is part of progress, not a sign of failure.
So if learners can avoid these habits, their fluency will improve much faster than they expect.
All right, Julia. Before we move to the ending of today's episode, I just want to remind every listener of something very important. Fluency is not something only talented people can achieve. It is something that every consistent learner can build step by step.
Yes, Jason, and I really want to say this from my heart. If you are struggling right now, if you feel like your English is not good enough, or you cannot speak smoothly yet, that does not mean you are behind. It simply means you are in the learning process, just like everyone else who is now fluent once was.
Exactly. Nobody becomes fluent overnight. Every confident English speaker you see today once struggled with the same problems: fear, hesitation, lack of words, and mistakes. The only difference is they kept going.
So don't compare your beginning to someone else's result. Instead, focus on your own progress, even if it is small. Every sentence you try, every word you speak, every mistake you make, it is all moving you forward.
And remember this: you don't need perfect English to start speaking. You just need courage to begin.
And your fluency is already inside you. You are just unlocking it step by step.
All right, Julia, let's quickly summarize today's key lesson on how to unlock English fluency.
Yes, Jason. First, we learned that fluency is not about perfect grammar or difficult words. It is about thinking and expressing your ideas naturally without translating everything in your head.
Then we talked about training your brain to think in English every day, even with simple sentences, and breaking the habit of translating word by word.
We also learned the importance of speaking before you feel ready, because fluency is built through practice, not preparation.
And finally, we saw that mistakes are not failures. They are part of the journey to confidence and real communication.
So the final advice is simple. Start today, speak a little every day, and don't wait for perfect English. Just focus on progress.
That's how you unlock real fluency. And that brings us to the end of today's episode on how to unlock your English fluency. We really hope this lesson helps you change the way you think about speaking English and gives you the confidence to start using it in your real life.
Yes, Jason, and to all our listeners, don't just listen to this episode and forget it. Take one small step today. Try speaking 1 or 2 sentences in English, even if it's simple. That small action can start your fluency journey.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow and subscribe to the English Learning Podcast so you never miss our future lessons.
And we'll see you in the next episode. Keep practicing, stay confident, and remember, your English is improving every single day.
Take care and goodbye for now.